Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and I just finished watching Conan the Destroyer. Well, I just finished watching it last night. And I have one question. What's wrong with it? So I watched Conan the Barbarian, the original from 1984 or 1982, a couple days ago, and I did a review, and I was like, hey, I really like this a lot. And people say, oh, yeah, it's great. Well, watch out for the sequel, it's terrible. And like I heard that so many times over and over and over again. So I thought I'd just watch it just to make fun of it or just to see a bad movie, and I'm still waiting to see a bad movie. I watched the whole thing and it was just fine. In fact, in some places it was actually pretty darn cool. So for people who haven't seen them, Conan the Barbarian came out in 1982. It was directed and partially rewritten by John Milius from an Oliver Stone script. It was very like mythic and ancient and Wagnerian, and it's great. I really like it a lot. And it's very different from the sequel. The sequel is effectively almost like a TV movie. It's a really good TV movie. I kept thinking about Xena Warrior Princess and Hercules. I was like, this is like a really really good two-parter. That being said, I'm not saying it's not a movie, but it's as on Red Letter Media they talk about a soft reboot. A soft reboot is when you keep many of the actors and props and you keep a lot of things from the previous movie, but you kind of change them too. So in the first movie, Conan, he's very extreme and he's mythic. He doesn't talk a lot. I don't think he talks for like the first 30 minutes or something like that. And then when he does talk, he doesn't talk like a modern guy or specifically a hero. He's kind of braggadocious. He likes to challenge people. He's fun, but he's, I don't know, borderline a bully. He's a barbarian, what I'm saying. The funny thing that I actually feel like Destroyer sounds more aggressive than Barbarian, but Conan the Destroyer should have been called Conan the Adventurer, which I believe was like a one season TV show from like 10 years later. So this one starts off, and he's got another little band of thieves that he's with. Or no, it's just one guy. I kept looking at this guy, and I was like, I know him from somewhere. And I forget what the character's name is. He's like the skinny thief. And it's Bob the Goon from Batman 1989. Remember when Joker like kisses him, or he like clasps his head. He's like, Bob, you're my number one guy. Which is, I think he was making fun of what Boss Grissom said to him. But anyway, it's that guy. So it's it's really cool. So I looked up the director because I had just assumed it was some trash straight to, VHS mid 1980s director for the second one, since it wasn't John Milius. And it's this guy named Richard Fleischer, and the guy was like 67 years old. The thing is, he had this really long Hollywood career. What I'm trying to say is he wasn't a fraud or a scam artist or some clown. He had directed dozens of normie movies. He did like the Soylent Green sci-fi and Mr. Majestic with, oh gosh, now I'm blanking on his name. What's his name? The guy who should have been Wolverine, Charles Bronson. And if they would have made a movie in like 1980, like a 1980 Wolverine movie should have starred Charles Bronson. But anyway, so it starts off and it's very, very clearly in the adventure mode. And it's kind of awesome. It starts off and Conan and the little skinny thief, they get beset by some royal guards who attack him, but then they realize they're trying to capture him, not kill him. One of the things I liked about this is there's just long fights, sometimes with just Conan fighting one enemy. The typical thing to do in these adventure movies is they get into the scene where there's a bunch of people and you'll hit a sword against this guy and then the stuntman just dies. Like, why is he dead? He just hit his sword. And you do a slash and you're just kind of moving through a crowd. So your brain goes, okay, he's good, but it's not necessarily that exciting. It's almost kind of like, one of the boxing scenes from Rocky. Like, you're going to see Conan fight just one, enemy for a while. And if he does fight multiples, it's going to take a while, and you're going to see, all of the fight. It's not a montage fight. It's like a real fight. So Conan gets brought to this kingdom where Ursa from Superman 2 is there, and she basically says, "Hey, I need you to, what is it? I forget. Is he rescuing a princess, or he's supposed to escort a princess? Anyway, it's a little quest. You're supposed to get here. You grab this magical horn from this castle with the wizard, and then you bring the. I actually forget if he rescued the princess. I know she's like pops up. It's Olivia Dabo, who's like 13, and she's like the young princess. And so you got Wilt Chamberlain. By the way, I had to look this up. I'm not a sports guy, so I just assumed, Wilt Chamberlain was like OJ or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like, they were in multiple movies. No. Wilt Chamberlain was like pushing 50, and he was in just one movie. Actually, Wilt Chamberlain is really good. He plays the Royal Guard, and his name is Bombada. And the only thing I didn't like about him is he has this weapon that's a combination of a mace and an axe, and it just really, really bothered me because it just looks like some kind of weird bird head. But he's a really cool, taciturn character. He's a good actor. I don't know why he didn't do more things. So then they got Bob the Goon, Olivia Dabo, Wilt Chamberlain, and then they have Grace Jones. And one of the things I kept thinking about, because on my other channel, I talk about SJW politics and hiring. And when I was reviewing Ice Pirates for this channel, the review mentioned typical 1980s colorblind casting. What that meant is before there was a push for diversity, movies were just kind of diverse because people liked that. You wanted to sell it to as many markets as possible. So, of course, you're going to put a black guy and a black woman because it was meant to be a mainstream movie for all kinds of audiences, and you want to attract different markets and things like that. And it's... Oh, and then they got Mako as... He was called the Wizard in the first one. He's called Akiro, I think, in the second one. He's similar looking, but different acting. In this one, he's like kind of like just like a Dungeons and Dragons wizard. In the first one, it almost just seemed like he was faking. You know what I mean? Or he just knew things, but he didn't really like. At this point, like Conan will just hand him a torch and he'll be like, "Murr," and then it'll burst into flames. So he'll be like, "How do we get out of this trap?" He's like, he does a little thing. He's like, "Oh, there's a secret thing underneath us." It's actually kind of cool. But this goes into the soft reboot thing. It's the same actor who looks similar, but he has a different name, or at least we're getting his real name, and his powers are different. That's the soft reboot thing. The other thing I can say about Arnold is that he's not as big as he was in Conan the Barbarian, but his muscle is a lot more dense. Like, he literally looks like a human action figure. In fact, it doesn't seem that he can bend his arm. There's a whole bunch of scenes whenever someone's talking, his hands are on his hips. And then I just realized he might be so muscular he can't actually straighten out his arm. But he's really good. He does seemingly a bunch of stunts. And like I said, I really like the thing about having extended things. The other thing about this, so it's, 1984. This is, before CGI. And some of the effects are kind of terrible, and some of them are kind of awesome. There's one point where they're like going on this lake to a castle, and for some reason, even though they show them by the side of the lake, when they go into the water, it's like a rear projection, like they're not really in the water. I'm like, why? Why didn't you just you had the boat. We saw the boat. Just put them in the water. And then, some of the effects are not that good, but again, some of them are kind of awesome. There's this like energy dragon that kidnaps the princess and brings her to the castle. Okay, so technically they did. I think she joined on the entire quest. It's like, you were destined to find it, but it's really a little trick that Ursa's doing. So then they go to the castle, and it's weird because we're going to see later on that this is a fairly, solid budget movie. But then they go to the castle, and the inside of the castle, at first they just showed this thing. It's like the inside of a tent. You go, whoa, that looks really cheap. And then they have this wizard, and then there's it's almost like a Gorn, but like a really bad looking Gorn, and it looks awful, just absolutely terrible. Like it's embarrassing. You're like, oh, is this like the half budget sequel? And it wasn't that. It was just for one scene, like they have a costume that's really bad. Then at the end, they have this god that comes to life, and it's, I believe, Andre the Giant in this awesome costume that seems like it comes from like 10, 20 years in the future. Like it's fantastic. So then they have a fight where Conan's losing because the monster can turn immaterial when Conan attacks, but when the monster attacks, he's solid. And then this weird kind of thing is they're in this hall of mirrors, and then they find out that damaging the mirrors damages the monster. And I just thought that was so freaking cool. And then the wizard is behind one, and then so he starts breaking all the mirrors, and it damages the monster. And then he figures out, he throws his sword through one of the mirrors and goes into the wizard and kills him. And then they escape with the something stone, the crystal, the something. No, they get the crystal somewhere else. Wait, did they bring the princess all the way up there just to get captured and then rescue her? I don't know. I liked it, but I was kind of doing a lot of stuff yesterday. So anyway, they escape and they go back, and then Ursa has told Wilt Chamberlain to kill Conan on the way back. So then they start to get in. They go to a place with a temple, and it's got a crystal. And these sets are awesome. Like it's something out of like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. There's this great thing that has like a big stone head with a jaw that goes up, and there's fire, but then the fire goes down, and you go into a chamber. And at one point, there's another wizard. So Conan doesn't like wizards. He doesn't like magic. So he tells, the wizard to handle it. And then it's like a little wizard battle. It's just freaking awesome. And then they get back to there's even whole scenes where they're just kind of like going to a castle. Like they go into like, they see a door, but they can't open it. What do? The wizard says, oh, the door, that's the exit door. The entrance is actually below it. This actually really reminds me of John Carter of Mars. There's tons of stuff like this in John Carter of Mars. So then they go in, and then at one point there's another door, but you have to be really strong. Like there's a whole scene of just lifting up a door, and it's really, really cool. I was never into like Dungeons and Dragons, but I would hear friends play it. It kind of reminded me about hearing them play it, what it was like. So eventually they go back, and the god is brought back, but then, geez, again, Arnold gets into this awesome fight with this like horned god. He has to rip the horn out. It just looks awesome when he does it. And this movie's awesome. I freaking loved it. I actually think I had more fun. Conan the Barbarian is awesome. It's a classic. It's an epic, and borderline epic. But it's definitely a classic. Very mythic. But this one is just like a solid, fun, like watch it on Saturday with your friends, VHS tape. I highly recommend it. So usually I like try to space things out, but I was so excited about Conan that I immediately went to go rent Conan the Barbarian 2011, which I don't remember being that good, and I guess it was a huge flop. I might watch Red Sonja. Tell me if it's... I'd always got the impression that Arnold's only in like 5 minutes of Red Sonja. Please tell me how much of it he's in. I've heard it's terrible, but it's the same director as Conan the Destroyer. So go check it out, Conan the Destroyer. Really awesome, fun movie. Thanks for watching.